student. It's not the lazy student. It's a student with too much to do. So I might, now that's a tough thing. How do you tell somebody who's got too much to do? It's like, hey, you got to do more, you got to do more. How do you do that? I might say to a student like, I know you're really busy and you got a job and you got people to take care of, but if you fail this class, it's going to be harder for you to take care of them. If you don't get your degree, it's going to be harder for you to take care of them. The money you're making right now as a student is a joke. They're not paying you enough. You want to make real money? Get your degree. So come to class so you can take care of the people you're trying to take care of. Come to class so you can quit that joke job that's not paying you anything and get a real one. Because I know you're working hard and I know you can do it. That's how I want to confront that person. So let's talk about how to do this. When we confront somebody, their shadows are going to come right up. I'm on page 27. And you'll see at the very top, it says contrasting. In every country, it seems, I think it's probably the only country I've ever been to where sexism, where discrimination against women is not a huge problem is Sweden. Men and women are very equal there. They share all the chores. People share power. In my country, we still got plenty of problems when it comes to that. We have a problem with women being discriminated against. Now, sometimes a man doesn't even know he's doing it. And that's when it's a real problem. And I'll give you an example. I had a team of people, and there were some older people and some younger people. And one of the younger people on the team, a young woman, went up and gave this fantastic presentation. She did so well. And this older man who was part of my team came up to her and said, "It's so good to see a young woman up there being so confident." And she was sort of like, "Thanks." And she walked away. It's like, why is it about me being a young woman? Why can't it be, you were great? If I'm going to hold up the standard of excellence, I'm not going to say, wow, it's so great that you're a young woman being excellent. It's so great that you're a black person being excellent. I have students who are African American. They work at a store, and a white person will come up to them and say, wow, you're so articulate. It sounds like they're saying, hey, you're smarter than you look. That's not a compliment. That's an insult. But people don't even know it. They think they're giving them a compliment, but they're not. How do you tell somebody that? How do you tell somebody you're discriminating against this person? So now I could go to my older gentleman here and go, hey man, that was so sexist. Why did you say that to her? And he'd go, what do you mean? I was complimenting her on her work. How is that sexist? Or I could do this. I could go up to Bob. It's always Bob. Bob's always the villain in all of my stories. I could go up and say, you know, Bob, I know that you respect all the women on the team. And I know that you would never say anything that would hurt them or hurt their career. And Bob might go, oh yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. I'm like, I know that. I know that you got a good heart here. But when you talk about someone's youth and someone's gender and say, wow, you're like the exception to the rule, all the other young women aren't as smart as you, that's not going to help that person. This is what I want to do, Bob. Now that I've showed you the problem, can I show you a video about what we call implicit bias? Because it really helped me understand things better. And Bob might go, well, okay, that sounds good. So I did 3 things. First, I thought about how might Bob become offended by me. How might what I'm going to say offend him? And I have to imagine how that might happen and then say, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not saying you're a sexist. I'm not saying you don't like the women on the team. I'm not saying you're trying to hurt people. I know you respect everybody. I know you wouldn't want to hurt someone's career. So I do a contrast. I anticipate, I imagine how they might be offended, and I make sure to say the exact opposite so they know that's not what I'm trying to do. Then I tell my story. What's the problem? The problem is your compliment was not a compliment. Now, a lot of people might say, well, it was just a compliment. It's better than saying something really negative. You know, it's not. There's a lot of research on this. Someone says, wow, you're so articulate. That's worse than someone saying, you're really stupid. If someone says I'm really stupid, I can go, yeah, well, you know what? So are you. And that's a really rude thing to say. But if somebody says, wow, you're so articulate, I'd be like, well, okay, I guess. I also told Bob the word you're looking for is eloquent. Articulate means I can understand you. Eloquent means you're speaking amazingly. You are incredibly intelligent, and your words are really moving me. If you're going to give a compliment, give a compliment. So these fake compliments hurt people more than insults. So, let's break this down. I have to tell somebody something they don't want to hear. The first thing I want to make sure they know is what I don't mean. I don't mean you're a bad person. I don't mean that you're doing a bad job. What I want to say is that you could do a better job. And then I say what the problem is. And this is the important part. I end with a question. How can we fix this? I don't tell the person what to do. How can we fix this together? If you ask a question and you invite that person into the solution, now they're part of the solution. Now they're going to want to solve things. I'll give you another example. When COVID was really bad in the United States, I had students on the East Coast where I live. It was bad. I had students that lost parents. Their parents died. I had students that lost friends. They lost coaches. They lost teachers. People were dying all around us. It was frightening. Nothing like this had ever happened in America before. And some students at my university were very careful and cautious. Other students just went out and went to parties and were not safe. They didn't wear their mask. They didn't get vaccinated. So I had a young man who took this sort of course with me, and he has parents who are sick. And he still wanted to go see them, though. He wanted to visit them and take care of them. So he was very careful. He wore his mask. He got his vaccines. He didn't do anything stupid. But he had a roommate who was going out, not wearing a mask, being dumb. He's like, my roommate is going to get me sick, and then I'm going to kill my parents, or I don't get to see them. What am I supposed to do? He did this. He went up to his roommate, and he said, look, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you how to live your life. You're my friend, and you have your freedom. But I'm worried. My parents are already sick. I'll give them a second. Boy, that's a lot of motorcycles and flags. Do they need that many motorcycles and flags to be a good leader? I mean, you see what I mean? I gotta need a loudspeaker. I gotta have all kinds of flags. Okay, if that's what they need. So, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you how to live your life. But I'm really worried that I'm going to get sick and my parents might die from that. Can we sit down and make a plan about how to be safer? And we'll work on it together. And the roommate said, okay, we can do that. And it worked. The roommate was safer. The young man got to visit his parents. It was fine. They didn't have a fight. All my students got in confrontations. I told my students, I'm like, I want you to get in a confrontation with somebody. And this is how I want you to do it. And they did. Now, a couple of students got confronted themselves. They're like, hey, we don't like the way you're behaving, man. And they're like, oh, okay. And they use these same steps. So, some things on 27 to tell your story. How does your story link to their values? Right? Like, I like to try and be, to preserve the environment. I don't like to make a lot of trash. You know, I try to keep that down. So, I might have somebody come up and say, hey, I see you got a lot of paper plates there. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but they're easier, you know. It's easier to use paper plates. You don't got to wash them. They're like, yeah, but didn't you say you're into being green? Well, yeah, I kind of did. It's like, well, how do the paper plates work with that? Well, they kind of don't. Well, what other sort of plates can you use? Right? What other thing can you do? So, what does the person already value? What's already important to them? Link what's already important to them to what you want to happen. Now, you're on the same side. We both want the same thing. One of the biggest problems with college kids is the messy roommate who just will never do the dishes. And they get in all kinds of fights about these things. And so sometimes a student might say, we all want a clean apartment. It's more relaxing. It's easier to study in, right? And they'll go, well, yeah. It's like, well, let's figure out a way to get the dishes done better. Maybe we should make a chart and divide it up equally. Would you like to help me make a chart on that? Notice how I keep ending with a question? I want to invite that person into the solution. That's how we solve it together. If it's like, do it my way. That's not a good idea. Right? If someone says that to me, do it my way, I'm like, no. You're taking away my freedom. Let's do it our way. Let's figure it out. What are some hidden victims? Who's being hurt by what's happening that we don't even know about? I had a colleague who was just never around for office hours. Students would walk up, they're like, where's Mr. Smith? Where's Dr. Smith? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know where he is right now. Oh, well, we were supposed to meet, and he's not here. So when Dr. Smith finally came back, I'm like, I don't want to tell you, how to run your day, and obviously you can't always be in the office all the time. And go, yeah, sure, I got other meetings, and I got other things to do. I'm like, well, you had 4 students who were waiting here for like a half hour, and then they left. And they looked pretty sad. So introduce hidden victims that the person can't see. Who's being hurt that they don't understand? For a while, I was doing something. I didn't want to teach a class with what's called a syllabus, like a sort of a guide to the class. I just wanted to sort of like figure it out as we went along. But my boss said, if a student needs to transfer your class to another university, they can't, because you don't have a guide for the class. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. So hidden victims. Ask a question, make a plan. At the bottom of it, the page, support the person, critique the behavior. That's the skillful way to change someone's behavior. I've got a whole bunch of examples here. I'm going to give you one from parenthood, or maybe older or brother sisterhood. You ever had a younger brother or sister who just wouldn't do their homework? And you're just like, you got to do this. Come on, you got to do this. How do you get them to do it? Here's one message. You've been working really hard this last marking period. And all your teachers, I'm on the bottom of page 28. Bottom of 28. All your teachers can see the improvement. This is the message I gave to my son. He was getting really down about school. He had the same struggles I had. And it was hard for him. You've been working really hard this last marking period, and all your teachers can see the improvement. It feels good walking into school in the morning and knowing you have everything ready. I'm telling him what I know he already wants. It does feel good to come to class and know you got it all done. And it is a terrible feeling coming into class, like knowing you don't have everything finished. I know you don't want to do this now, but this is the important part. Not to slip and start falling behind again. Why don't you take a 10-minute break outside and we'll shoot some hoops. Then come back in and get back into this assignment. Does that sound like a plan? We support the person, we critique the behavior. That's how it's skillful. Now, I'm going to run through a couple of things here. What about when we give advice? Anybody here give advice sometimes to people? They come to you. I bet there's people in the room, a bunch of you. You're the friend that everybody talks to, right? Like, and I know Baraka people ask you for advice all the time, right? Because you're the pastor. So here are a couple of things we can do to make it easier for people to hear our advice. This is the problem doctors have, is that they're right, but they're not effective. If I'm not effective in giving my advice, it doesn't matter if I'm right. It doesn't matter how right I am. The person won't hear it. Or I'm making them defensive. Or I'm making them feel ashamed. Then they don't want to hear advice from me. So one of the things that I do